in the 4th century of the history of the church, the man Jerome, Saint Jerome, was famous for translating the Bible into the vernacular, which in those days was Latin. And there had been previous attempts to translate the Bible into Latin, but Jerome's was far superior because of his mastery of Hebrew, which few of the Christian scholars of his day had taken the time to do. Most of the Christians in his day spent most of their time translating from the Greek Septuagint rather than from the Hebrew text of the Tanakh, the canonical Old Testament. And for his achievements, he was widely recognized as a very pious, very holy man of God. And paintings were commissioned to him. That is, they were commissioned of him. And when we look at the history of the paintings of Jerome, the history of the paintings of St. Jerome, when we look at the ones that were commissioned close to the time of his life, we see that Jerome was clearly a black man. Clearly, he was of sub-Saharan African descent. Over the centuries, something freaky started happening, and Jerome started doing this Michael Jackson thing where he starts turning into a white guy. So that by the time of the Renaissance and the more racially charged atmosphere of Western Europe, where the Portuguese started buying slaves from Africa, you'd have these warring kingdoms in Africa, and the prisoners were summarily put to death. Well, the Portuguese figured out, rather than putting all of your prisoners to death, why don't we just buy them and we'll sell them as slaves? Well, in this racially charged atmosphere, Jerome does this Michael Jackson thing where all of the paintings that are done of him are suddenly all white, and even his hair, his eyes, he starts becoming blonde, he starts having blue-eyed complexion, looking nothing like the African, the black man that he clearly was when he lived. And the Saint Jerome of the paintings is now this clearly Nordic white guy. completely off from the real man who accomplished so much in his lifetime that his translation of the Bible would become the standard accepted translation of the Western Church for over 1,000 years. It's really tragic, when you look at the epistles of the New Testament, where the Apostle Paul talks about how in Christ there's no race distinction. Race should not be matter of importance in the church. Race shouldn't be concern for people who follow after Jesus. And yet, the church in the Western world today, the church in America, is one of the most segregated, one of the most racially charged places that you could possibly visit in America today. It's real tragic, considering how far this is from the biblical ideal.